introduce some of the people that are going to be part of this amazing experiment. And Alex Blake has joined me today. I've got Aisha here as well. Anyone who's watching this, come over to the Zoom room and join in. Today's going to be a little bit informal as I go live and tell you a little bit about what I am doing and how I see this all turning out. So this is like a brave experiment, and I am just so grateful that so many people are interested in watching this unfold. And I have to share with you, this is part of a crisis of confidence I had about writing a book. Now, I've already written a book 12 years ago, Your Property Success with Renovation. 2 properties, 1 renovation, $1 million in the bank. And, you know, the interesting thing about writing a book and writing this first book, it took the the publishers, Wiley and Sons, which are an Australian-based and American-based publishers, about 6 months to convince me to write a book, because I have like 121 books on property. And I was like, why would anyone want to listen to my story? And they kept saying, but they haven't heard it in your voice. And it's funny, I was talking to someone yesterday who's going to be joining us next week. And I said the same thing to him. I said, every single time I think about the book I really want to write that's in my heart, someone sends me a link going, hey, have you seen this book that's just about to come out? And I keep getting all of these books that have never been on my radar before. So I went through this kind of crisis of confidence. And what happened when I wrote the first book, I had a beautiful large advance from the publishing house. They then kind of controlled the situation. So they said, hey, look, the biggest seller, since Borders is broken down, the biggest seller of books in Australia, much to my disgust, is not Angus and Robertson or Dymocks, it's Big W, which is kind of like Costco. And I was like, oh my God, okay. And they said they would like you to have renovation in the title. And I said, this is more than renovation. This is renovation as part of a strategy of creating wealth with property. And yep, I see there people have bought from Big W, especially those 10 to 15% discounts. I'm always one for a discount. And so I sat with that and thought, okay, well, if they're going to control that, I'm going to control the name of it. And my company is called Your Property Success. So that will be in the name, and I'll have some sneaky marketing. Now, I had done that previously when I started my mortgage broking business 20 years ago in 2005. My husband and I sat down and brainstormed, like, how could I piggyback off a marketing opportunity or a marketing kind of subconscious story people had in their minds. And at that stage, Mortgage Choice was the biggest mortgage broker in Australia. And so I named my company Investors Choice. So there was kind of like a subliminal kind of messaging. And so I'm not ignorant to marketing, and I've been studying under some of the great digital marketers and marketing experts around the world for the last 14 or 15 years. And, you know, I remember back in 2011 when I was looking to bring my education online, there was no one authentic in Australia I could learn from. So I ended up flying backwards and forwards from the States and being taught by Brendan Burchard. And that kind of opened me up to, you know, learning and trying and applying more. And so, you know, then I coached with so many other, you know, great people. And I did that with the intention of, you know, really teaching people how to overcome their financial burdens or the condition they'd set for themselves to overcoming finance and wealth, so that they could then go on and, you know, live an abundant life and choose, you know, the side hustle or spending more time with the kids or going to the, you know, going and spending time with their elderly parents, whatever that was. And I bought into the narrative that if that condition was fulfilled, then everything would be fine. And then through the work of William Whitecloud, through the work of, you know, studying the Stoics and studying, you know, some ancient wisdom, and then, you know, reading some of the neuroscience texts, and then spending a week with one of the world's experts neuroscientists last year, I realized, you know, these are limitations. In actual fact, if we go for what we really want, we go for what's in our heart, then nothing should hold us back. You know, these conditions of wealth or time are things that we can get rid of. And so in September, when I was working with my coach, William, he said, finally, it's turned up in your land of plenty of things that you should create in the next 6 months, a book. And I was so resistant. And the reason that I saw that vision of the book, I saw the work, you know, getting up from 6:30 to 7:30 every morning for like a year to write the book, and you know, then deliver it to the editors, and they do what they do. And then I mean, I didn't even know there was people like this. I hired someone whose one goal was to write a compelling hook title for every chapter. You know, so there was all of this kind of orchestration, and I just knew I didn't want to do it. And I was creating this tension around it. And then I had this beautiful conversation with my husband, and he said, why are you putting yourself through this? Like, you know, just get on with what you love. I said, no, this is like, I have to get this out of my head. I have to share the information because I'm speaking to world experts, and every day some incredible person turns up in my sphere, and I'm like, this is so good. I need to include them in the book. And then I sit back and go, well, let's be realistic. It's going to take me a few months to write the book, and then it gets kind of edited and fixed up, and then it gets published. Maybe I'll find a publisher, maybe I'll self-publish. Like, we're talking a year, and then people aren't getting this information. And so this is dirty. This is not me teaching. This is you watching over the shoulder of me, going on this research project. So, you know, when I was thinking about how to put this today in a framework, and I was like, oh, I'll give people like worksheets. It's like, no, this is not about that. This is about me showing you some of the questions and some of the insights and how I would get to the end result of being the book. And when I looked at the current reality and I had that conversation with my husband, a book is just a tool for transformation, and the transformation is what I want for people. I don't care about the bestseller. I don't care about the $1 million or whatever. And, you know, having speaking to a lot of publishers recently, I realized, you know, I've got a bestseller. I've sold 5,000 books, but 90% of authors don't sell more than 1,000. And a lot of them are in their garages. And, you know, I want this information out there. And if it's a book that's just sitting because of, you know, some kind of mechanism of marketing, then I'm not interested. And I was very fortunate to have the Los Angeles Tribune pick up my podcast in the last 6 months, and they've put me on their platform, and their goal is to go to 100 million people by June. And they're translating my podcast into Japanese and Mandarin at the moment. And that's about sliding door moments of inspiring kind of stories where people are seeing what's in their heart and seeing they have a choice. And I was sitting there going, like, I've been doing these beautiful interviews for a year with people who have shared these stories. And, you know, I'm doing that to inspire people. But what if I could actually take, you know, people on the journey with me? Because, you know, what goes on in here is kind of like, there's a lot that goes on. Let's just put it that way. And you know, with the group coaching that I have, you know, they get all of me. You know, everyone else just gets a little bit and goes, wow, isn't that interesting? But, you know, I want to put all of me somewhere where people can experience that as well. And that's what this is all about. So, you know, I did come up with a little framework of what I wanted to show you of how I've got to where this book is going to be set up. And then full on from next week, I'm going to be interviewing people about the mechanisms of the structure of the book. Now, there's going to be some things that don't get included in the book. There's going to be other things that do get included in the book. I'm very fortunate to have Alex Blake from Diamond Stories with me. Alex and I, as you probably heard at the top, have just been best of friends since we were like 19, and we turned up at University of New South Wales to study mining engineering together and became flatmates. And we both became mining engineers. I went into coal and quarries, and Alex went into the better, prettier side of diamonds. And and then became, her skills and genius around writing and hearing people's stories and pulling those out. She has done some amazing things, and I look forward to introducing you to her later, because she's going to give me some insights about what I should consider with this book. But I thought I'd bring you up to stage to what I've done so far. I want to share some tools with you as well that are helping me in doing that, because I imagine there's people here who've written a book or want to write a book. Then you might be here and listening because it's a year in the future, and the picture's been up in Times Square saying buy the book, and you're just turned up and going, I want to know how this all started. Or you might be someone who's there going, what crazy thing is Jane up to at the moment? I just want to see what's going on. So this could be a train wreck. There may not even be a book at the end of it. We might just package up all of the interesting interviews and share them on the Exit the Matrix podcast. Who knows? And I'm not attached to that outcome. And if I can bravely, model failure publicly, but with an expectation, a positive expectation of what this could be as a transformational tool for people, I just hope that someone out there might get a little inkling of what they could try privately and go for what's their heart's desire. So the book itself, I want to show you how I came up with the structure, how it changed a few times, how I then got in my head, how then I got out of my head. But that's the intention of today, because once we move on from today, we are going flat strap. So today, I'm going to give you the structure, where I've got to. Alex is going to give me some insights onto how to write a book, what to think of, when to check in with my editor, and then I am interviewing next week Darren Stevens. Darren Stevens was the marketing genius behind Dr. John Gray's Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I had a chat to him yesterday, and what he told me about Dr. John and that journey blew my mind. Some of the strategic things they do for marketing for books that you can incorporate in a book now. So if we start with the end in mind that there is a book, things that can be included. So that's pretty extraordinary. I then reached out to another incredible person, Swati. Swati was an amazing person. There you go. Someone's already published with Darren. The interesting thing about Darren, he's had 12 of his own best-selling books, and I've got Alex, who's had 15 best-selling books under her platform. But yeah, he's had 12 of his own, and he's pretty interesting in how he came about that. And I was asking him about his sliding door moment, and he was talking on stage with Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dwyer, and Eckhart Tolle, I think. And so the four of them were in the green room, and he said to Wayne, this is like 20 years ago, how do I get started with all of this? I'm just my start. And he said, read a book. There's this book called I Am That. And he said it changed his life. So, everyone has these kind of sliding door moments, and I want to bring some of that. Darren has a whole separate, incredible modality of hypnotism, which I think is interesting for us to consider as a way to look at how we can live from our heart, and how we can absorb some of the information and the stories that we tell our brain. So he's going to come back later. In 3 weeks, I've got Swati. Swati was 2IC for General Electric with $1 billion budget in South Africa, and about to become the CEO. And she was on Oprah's top 100 list of women to watch and people making moves in the world. And she basically gave it all away so that she could follow her heart's spiritual journey. And she's done, I think, 3 PhDs in different topics on comparative religions and personal development texts. And she'll be joining us to talk about that sliding door moment, because I'm really structuring this book in that kind of awareness, like where we become aware of what we want, or we're not comfortable, or we're in unease. And then the second part is really going to be around that awakening of, how methodologies and things that we can do, and experiments, and everything. I'd love you to join me with, like gratitude and What happens if you have a sense of gratitude in the morning? What happens if you journal at night? What happens if you smell a prosperity essence? And you know, you have like the most pure pure essences in the world. This comes from, and I'll drop you some links in this because people might be interested in it. But the most pure essences in the world that, you know, are from Native American cultures and mixes. And having personally participated in, there's a book called Breathe about nasal breathing and how it stimulates stem cells and how it gives you more cognitive abilities. I'm always looking for hacking success things. I participated in the Southern Cross University study on nasal breathing and how to enhance it. And the thing that, it wasn't tapping, it wasn't humming for me, that got me to hold my breath and have better nasal breathing was essence. So I'm already pre-primed to that. Maybe I've been hypnotized for it, but I think there's so many experiments that we can run, that we can incorporate, and there's going to be things that wouldn't go into the book, and there might just be an interesting story. I've also just spoken to a gentleman who did all of the marketing off the back of The Secret and set up, I think he said there was 12 authors, set up $1 million launches for each of the 12 launch writers from there. And he had some incredible insights of what people do on the back end of the book and what he did with The Secret. So I want to bring, you know, not just for those who are interested in writing, I want to bring some insights for you and give you some tools and maybe a cautionary tale of how not to write. And but I also want to give you some insights of, you know, the leaders in their fields. And you know, I'm very fortunate to be in a number of groups internationally with some of the most incredible people, and that kind of awareness, awakening, and then that activation stage of how you stay in a state that is aligned to your heart's desire, aligned to creating the impact, your purpose, you know, aligned to everything in relationships so that you can have a truly abundant life and have true wealth. That's the kind of narrative that I'm working with. But as my coach, William Whitecloud, said, if you sit down and end up with a book that you started to write, you haven't done a good job. So it's going to change. So I know that the structure can go out the window, as it already has a few times. So I just want to take you through, I guess, some of the tools and some of the things that I've been using. I'm going to share my screen. Let me know that you can see my screen. That looks like it's got a Facebook page on it at the moment, and it's called Living Writer. Yep, perfect. Okay, I just want to take you through the process that I'm doing here so that you've got an idea of where this madcap story is going. So I decided that I was going to find out what was the SEO, the search engine optimized ranking term that everyone, if they saw on a book title, would click. And so I went to YouTube and I did a study into what are the videos that had the most looks, views. And I was thinking, it has to be purpose. And there was like 50,000 views. And I was like, joy? It was like 100,000 views. It's like, oh God, maybe it's, you know, living a fulfilled life. And I was like 20,000 views. And then I went to happiness and it was like 2 million views. And I was like, okay, it's happiness. That's a good word to start with. So I decided to call the book way back in September, The Happiness Revolution, which to me sounded like a really good story. And then as you can see in December, I had a crisis of confidence because I was working with one of the amazing people that's been working for me for 6 years. He's from Colombia. He's based here in Melbourne. And I was saying, hey, Diego, I'm writing the book, The Happiness Revolution. And he said, oh, I wrote that 6 years ago in Spanish, which he did. And I was like, dang, I Googled The Happiness Revolution. Okay, I'm going to change it to the, you know, the rewiring of your mind, the neuroscience, because we're going to go into that. So I changed in December to Happiness Rewired. And then someone in one of the elite marketing groups I'm in said, I'm coming up with Wealth Rewired book out in January. And I was just like, I have to ignore what everyone else is doing. So I kept it called Happiness Revolution to remind me that this is a bit of fun, to remind me that, you know, not to get all caught up with with the way that we do things. Now, I'm just going to drop in I think you should be able to see this. I'm just going to drop this in the chat and I'll put it below so that you can have a look. But this is the link to Living Writer. So you can see here, got all these people talking to me. I then thought I'd be really, clever, and I downloaded their, how to write a framework for a self-development book, and it essentially says, come up with a really good introduction and tell them who you are, come up with a pain point. I thought, oh, that's a good idea, and then come up with your thing. And I've got the twist framework, and if anyone's been following me, twist is like thriving. So it's like thriving emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and physically. So how do you actually thrive with vitality? Wealth, and I've obviously, as a millionaire maker, and I'm going to claim that. I had another person I was speaking to yesterday who said, I started working, I read your book 10 years ago. I followed it word by word, and we've now got $1.2 million worth of equity. And I'm like, you're a millionaire. And he was like, oh my God, I didn't realize I am a millionaire. So I've definitely helped over 20 years people become millionaires in that property space. In the last 5 years, I've helped businesses, create impact in their space with marketing, etc. So those two things in wealth I can talk to quite confidently. And then that interconnection, that we're connected to all things. And I've recently found this beautiful Hindu myth around Indra, who's the king of the gods, and it's called Indra's net or Indra's web, and it's this web across the universe, and everywhere that it interacts is this beautiful jewel that represents us in our heart. And if we shine that jewel, it actually reflects more and more. And I love that concept of having, the relationships, the fact that we have a magnetic field of 2.5 meters around our heart that can be measured, and how we affect people. And I look forward to bringing Dr. Rebecca Granger Ellis, the neuroscience neurobiologist, who actually lectures in hostage negotiation at Johns Hopkins University, and the UN use her in the G20 to regulate the room with the world leaders. So, that kind of how we can have better relationships and how we can be connected to more fascinates me, that I'll explore in this research. Spirit around our why, our purpose, why we're here, what's the impact we want to make. And we know from books like Mind Magic with Dr. Doty, where he talks around intention, but he also talks around how if you add with intention your goal to an impact of others and more than just yourself, how the likelihood of achieving that is exponential. So there's some kind of like science, as my husband always says. Are you going to tell me that this is scientifically proven, or are you just going to tell me the story? There's some science. And then time. And time, I think, is incredible, because we know from quantum physics, we know from neuroscience that time is an illusion. We know it's a construct that we've made up to process our place in the world so that we can get it and we can understand it. But if time's the biggest barrier for people, how can I get rid of that? And, I've just been awarded finalist in the Australian inaugural AI Awards. I've just been made a finalist in the thought leaders for the mortgage industry. The Australian Financial Review newspaper has just reached out to me and asked me if I'll apply for their AI awards. I use AI in a dynamic way that allows me to save time. And, I coach and teach people and run workshops on it, because I think it's a tool that if I can get people more time, they can think about what's their true purpose or how they turn up to serve their ideal client better, or their family. So there's the twist. And this is where I thought I was like really clever. I actually then come up with the title that actually spells out quantum leap. So, that's where I started. And then I had this whole crisis of confidence and everything went pear-shaped pretty much. And so the Thrive, concepts were definitely things that I wanted to explore. The way that the manuscript works and my ability to look into research is essentially on my phone. I have this app, And every morning I usually get an announcement from someone on something interesting. Then I go down rabbit holes. And so I'm collecting articles, you know, Lisa Feldman Barrett around your emotions and how they trick your brain. Maybe I've got notes in there. Peter Diamandis, you know, he talks about you need to have a future that's bigger than your past. You know, what are some of the things that we can align ourselves? So I pretty much, you know, go through and I look at a lot of different things that I can use as research. And this is where I'm holding all of my knowledge and all of my research as well. So I just wanted to show you that because I think it just gives you, yeah, and that's right. The title's going to change so many times, right? And then I found out that you should not even give it a title until you finish. So let's play with that. So this is kind of the process that I've been going through. So I just wanted to show you that. And then, you know, I know that there's people who, Sahil Bloom is launching this week a book that essentially talks about the 5 things that I believe are the same things as Twist. And he has the head of Google, you know, doing a commentary on it. He's got the head of all the biggest companies in the world who've already reviewed it and saying, you should buy this. And I'm just like, why do I even bother? But then I think I want to tell it in my words. So this is why I'm here and doing it. And so I guess this is kind of brings me to the crisis that I went through. And I was speaking to this incredible group of, I don't want to call them dark web, but there's a group of people who are making a positive impact for humanity. And they have this kind of network of giving where you ask for something before you offer so that people can turn up. And so it's a group of about 2,000 people around the world. And so this amazing man said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm creating this book. And he said, oh, okay. You know, I used to dabble in this. And it turns out we have connections with amazing people. But he introduced me to a beautiful people. And I told him what the book was about. And he sent me this podcast. He said, I think you should listen to this. And this is a podcast about how to achieve financial freedom as a writer. But it's from this 3-time New York Times bestselling editor. And he essentially goes through and tells you how to create a bestseller in his experience. And he goes into the dirty stuff of buying the 20,000 books and putting them in the warehouse and sending them out one by one and all of these things that you see these best-selling authors do, and, you know, buy 10 and get my course, or, you know, buy them for 99 cents tomorrow and we'll all be Amazon bestsellers, like all that kind of stuff that I don't want to play. And but he had this incredible insights on the structure and how to structure a best-selling book. And then he said, you know, come and do it with me for $19,000. And I thought, I think I could do one better than that. So essentially, and this is, I just want to give you like the tools and how I do these things. So that's not him. Let's go back to his thing. So what I essentially did was I created, when I go in here, I created the transcript. So I showed the transcript here. So a transcript turned up. I copied the transcript. I then went into ChatGPT and I built a custom ChatGPT that said, take all of Charlie's framework. And so if I then click in here and say, it says, tell me about your book, and I tell them about my book, it will then come up with, hey, this is how you do the framework. Now, if you want to have like a little cheat, framework, please. This is the framework that a best-selling author does based on what Charlie, who's been the editor of 3 of these books, says. So, you know, he talks around what would make a best-selling author. And I want to give everyone in the group access to this. So I'm going to be copying this in the Exit the Matrix with me. As I build tools, you guys are going to get them. And, you know, it's like there's 3 parts to it, right? In the first person, pick a winning title, get the clay on the table, make it conversational. Start by having a hook, a bold opening, a story, a stat, or something surprising. You know, edit, polish for maximum reader retention. Some of the things that he said that really shocked me was that 80% of people don't read past the, actually I could even ask, what percentage of people finish a book? Can't spell, don't care. 80 to 90% of people never finish it. On Kindle, they abandon it before 50% is completed. Audiobooks tend to have a higher completion rate. And breakdown of reading habits, 10% of buyers never even start a book and 50 to 60 quit before half time. So what was really interesting about that is he says, put everything in the first 3 to 5 chapters because most people are not going to get to the rest. And I was like, ooh, interesting. And of course I can sit there and go, of course, I'd love people to get to the rest in mind. But the reality is I know that success leaves clues. That these people have already done this before. This is, cut the fluff, remove redundancy, don't have a slow start, start with a hook, start with a personal story. And so I thought, wow, this is really interesting. Okay, so I need to now, come up with a bit of a plan. And so I went in and said, all right, I did a theme and the book premise and the conceit as a process with my coach. And I said, okay, so I need to come up with basically what the theme is about this book. And so I came up with the theme, and the theme is the heart is the key. And this is something that had been landing with me the whole time, is that if we drop into our heart and we drop into what we love, and we drop into the who we love, if we drop into the physicality of our heart, if we drop into the present, if we take it out of the head and go to the heart, it could unlock everything, clarity, abundance. And so I put this transcript with William into chat. And just so you know, if you're using ChatGPT, I believe it's the paid $20 service, you can have projects now. So I have my book, I have all of my things under the book project. And so what that allows me to do is, let me just show you this so that if people are doing this, is this interesting or not? Yep. If you go into the book, I've actually uploaded like all of these things. So they're always going to be referencing this, and I can have instructions, but referencing this every time I jump in and create a prompt in here. Just a unique thing. So basically the premise of the book is that everything you need is already within you. You just have to unlock it. And so I love that kind of narrative, because if we're self-referential, and I'd been studying Neville Goddard's work on the Bible recently, and in the Bible the words I am come up 76 times, and that reference of you are actually God, which sounds almost sacrilege to a good little Catholic girl like me, but it sits so true. And so I want to navigate this kind of story and talk to people around. Religion's been telling us this, and all the religions tell us this. So I'm really interested in having a chat to Swati around that comparative religion and how well these things turn up as well. The thesis, living from your heart, means recognizing that you already have everything you need within yourself and the resources to lead a life of abundance, aligned, and a life of personal fulfillment. And the antithesis is living in fear, doubt, external validation creates a sense of lack and limitation, keeping people disconnected from their true selves. This is kind of Williams. Has a writing workshops. This is his framework. You need a premise. You need a theme, you need a premise, and then you have conceit. And this is like, why are you different? And basically, just doing this real-time experiment makes it different, but blending the woo and the wow, the science and what's considered abstract spiritual is a bit unique, and a shock of simplicity. Really the book just challenges people. What do you want, and why don't you just go for it? And so that's essentially the overview of where I'm heading with the book. And then I kind of went through and ChatGPT, and I had a long conversation over many things. And this whole heart is the central narrative, anchor the heart as the hero. This is kind of the concept of each module of the heart is to link back to the heart. So, the limiting beliefs are reframed through self-compassion, heart work. Energy mastery is amplified by emotional resilience, heart coherence. Wealth becomes aligned when you tied your values and purpose, heart-guided decisions. So, this whole kind of the heartbeat as a rhythm of alignment, and these metaphors were quite beautiful. And so this is kind of, the interesting kind of pathway that I went through of how I want to write the book, and how, with this intention, this is a general guide for me now to, call humanity to a vision of painting the world how they want it to be, and choosing to claim it for themselves. So this is kind of, as you can see, I've got 34 pages where I've had a lot of conversations about Intra's web, this teaching. I love this connection of the origin, and how we can use that as a metaphor, and and have that as a beautiful weaving metaphor. Imagine a vast infinite web stretching across the universe. There you go. Where did I get it? Each point is a jewel reflecting others. So, I think that, this idea of us working together, and uplifting people from that awareness state is something that's I really love. So research. All of this is kind of like my morning. I'm like, where's this going to go? So I came up with the plan. I then came up with the document to give me kind of orientation. I then came up with like the launch plan, the experiment. ChatGPT told me I was very clever, because no one had ever done this before. And there's probably a reason why. Target words, which I'm looking to chat to Alex about this. I have heard that it's now about 50,000. And if I'm not writing that well, it could take me a long time. Have a YouTube channel. So it's just like, hey, have the Ride or Flight Accountability Squad, which is this group. Go out with a masterclass, which I did. Thank you so much for those who joined. So this, I kind of have, the outline of the book, part 1, 2, 3, 4, and how I'm going to be bringing in experiments and experts for that. So the book outline is essentially, part 1 is the matrix of limitation, and this is really in that awareness stage where people, get into potentially that the success trap. I'm ungrateful if I'm not happy where I am at the moment. Some mechanisms around rooting out what the limiting beliefs are, opportunities to rewire the brain, and then around that energy, the invisible force behind success, the vagus nerve, how we can actually create coherence and creativity. So just some untapping areas. And then the science of freedom. This is where, we can get into the breath work, the essential essences. Should put some prosperity on now, shouldn't I? Essential essences. I don't think you're supposed to rub your things together. I'll find out soon enough. Cold exposure, what people can do. Maybe the Heart Math Institute, I've spoken to someone who's aligned to them. I hope to get someone from the Heart Math Institute to talk to. I've just spoken to amazing people who are opening up the doors. So, there's some exercises that we can do, manifestation of, how we can actually, our thoughts create our reality. Or as the man from Cut talks about, Mike Dooley calls it, thoughts become things, words become wings. Just some of these beautiful concepts around, where our energy goes, where our thoughts go, our energy flows, kind of thing, like how we can control the narrative. Practice an aligned life. So this is where I get, oh no, let's not miss out on wealth. The wealth aspect, I've just spoken to a man who in France, who has the heart economy, has a group of leaders from around the world who are committing their companies to lead from the heart. So these are incredible things that we have these opportunities to discuss. And so this is essentially, I guess, the writing plan I have. I know that I now need a hook. I know that I need a blurb, which apparently is just for the media to pick up quickly and put in where they are. So I need to, have what I'm creating, change this up as I learn things. And one of the things that I learned was obviously, the fact that, okay, we've got all these experiments that I want to run as well, but, we'll be running different experiments, and we'll be trying different things, and we'll be doing, all of these, there'll be worksheets, etc. But I know just from, this structure, that wherever my structure is, I need to have a hook, a story to start with, a personal story to start with, and talk to one person. So what I did was I went and grabbed every story that I have shared on podcasts, on masterclasses, on Facebooks, stories, etc. And I've grabbed those transcriptions and looked at how I can come up with essentially a great story to start with, which is where I'm going to start in the next week. So that's essentially where I have come from. That's where we're going. It's going to be a bit of an experiment. I'm going to have some of the most incredible people come and join us in the next 2 or 3 months, 4 or 5 months, however long it takes for me to get enough. But yeah, that's about it. That's where I am. Alex, I'm going to have to bring you up now as my editor, my friend, who's going to keep me accountable. I know that you've got a lot of insights on, you've been able to, take your incredible genius. I don't know, how many hundreds of people did you edit and manage in books when you were doing the collective book writing?
Gosh, hundreds, maybe probably up to about 800 by now.
So you've heard a lot of stories.
I've heard a lot of stories.
A lot of people, have think that their story matters, but does it matter to someone else? So I'm, as my go-to guru on this, I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on, starting off writing. How often should I be talking to someone like you, or a writing coach, or, this is kind of like a messed up, construct of what's in Jane's brain. Give me some framework.
Well, it is a bold experiment, and I do want to congratulate you, Jane, for putting this out there, because I think there's just going to be such a swell of people who aren't going to feel alone in the journey, because it can be a really solo process. And or often we believe it has to be a solo process. So well done, and it's you're clearly off to an amazing start. So where the for those who are starting out, yeah, definitely go in and have a look at, well, what do I want to write about? And if you don't know yet what you want to write about, go back into and reflect on, well, what do I love talking about? What do people tell me that they wish they could learn more, about that topic? And look at, what lights you up, what excites you. So that's the topic, and what am I going to write about? But also, how do you bring that into a more sort of strategic framework and apply it? And I love what you've done, Jane, with your outline, because every book needs a structure. We can think and dream and have brilliant ideas, but somewhere along the path, you've got to put them into some structure. And for those who are unclear about that, I'd suggest, thinking of it as building a house. I can think about light fittings and beautiful sofas and window framing and so on. But if I don't have a solid foundation, and I don't have my uprights in, and I don't have my, ceiling and roof structured well, then no amount of dreaming about light fittings is going to create my house. So you have to get writing, absolutely, but concentrate on your foundation first. Have a look at what you want your theme to be, because this is going to keep you focused. And then have a question that you're answering along the way. And you've just shared, Jane, what you're uncovering as you take people, through your story. But I'd encourage everyone to do that. Have a question. What's your focusing question? What are you discovering in your book that the reader can be on that journey with you? That's it. And then what that does is it creates an engagement for the reader, because you as the author, you're showing some vulnerability. You know, clearly you've got relatability and credibility, but you also need to bring out the vulnerability piece. You're not just coming across as an expert who knows all about this one topic. That's just a couple of points that I would share.
So the fact that, you know, in the experiment phase and the research phase and bringing people in that journey, obviously I'm like on a quest of knowledge and curious and trying to find, you know, the way that I can bring information into the structure that I think the structure is for the book. And, you know, the names of the parts might change, but this kind of awareness, awakening, activation, and you know, we're hoping that people come actualized at some stage. I don't think we'll cover that in the book, but you know, that journey to the research is one thing. Do you think when it comes to writing the book, though, would it be like, do I take people through, like, I was on this journey and this is what I found, or is it a presentation of this is the way and this is my interpretation of the way? Like, do I take them through the vulnerable journey, like, or I just have that in the introduction and I write it as if it's, you know, the hypothesis has been proven? What do you think?
It's a good question. It just depends, because you know, there's a real balance. You want your reader to see you as the expert. At the same time, you want the reader to see your humanness. So when you're putting your structure together, you're going to be pulling pieces in that you can use as evidence. You can use as demonstrations, as examples. They might be case studies with a client. They might be a, you know, a personal story. There might be some research that you've introduced, and, you know, quoting that person who's provided you with the research, obviously. So it just depends. I would say you have to do both.
Okay.
You don't want to put too much weight on, here it is, I've found the answer to, you know, being alive.
Enlightenment.
I've found enlightenment.
No one else knew, but I found it.
No one else knew. I've discovered it, and here it is. Just do this.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to come across like that, because then people can't be, you know, they can't warm to you. They can't engage with you. On the other hand, you don't want people to be swimming around with you in so much vulnerability that they tune out with, this author doesn't know what they're doing. This author is, you know, that's a different platform. It's not a book. It's not a self-help book.
Yeah.
Well,
that's this group.
Yeah, maybe.
This author has no idea what she's doing, but she's finding stuff out. Yeah, and I take that what you're saying, because the credibility piece of why I should listen to you is always kind of, you know, part of marketing message, like one-on-one, why people are going to change their beliefs. And they always talk about the fact that you should enter the conversation people are already having in their head. And I think that what you're saying is true there, because who I think this book is for is people who are at that stage where they've had, you know, a degree of contentment, and they're like, why should I feel unsatisfied? I've got a beautiful family, I've got a great job, my partner's amazing, the dog doesn't bite me, like, you know, life is okay, but I still have this little, like, you know, and I think that there's more and more people that I speak to, and they might come to me as a property coach or an investment coach or a business coach or a marketing coach. And I spoke to a gentleman the other day who was wanting a marketing insights into his business. And when we started talking and delving into his ideal client, I had to stop him and said, you've got complete contempt for this person, like this type of person. No wonder all of the money you're spending on Facebook ads is repelling them. Like this, your intention is not correct. Tell me what you love and what you've loved doing in the past. And we created an entire new business that is up and running within the last 6 weeks, and his heart is in it. So I think that, there's often we feel there's the right way or the thing we should do, and we're just not even aware that there's something more. So I think that kind of awareness for me, if I can tap into people at those different levels and the story that's going on, going like, I don't want to say anything, but like, is this it? That's my kind of who I think I'm writing for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. And it's an important piece to know. It may not come at the start of your writing, and it depends how serious people are with writing, but you have to have a sense of who your reader is. You have to have a sense of, this or like where they're at, because that's also going to drive some of your vulnerability. How much do I share? Because you're not going to share everything, but you have to have a sense of, what is my reader struggling with? Why am I their guide? Why are they choosing me? What is it that I can bring here and help them uncover and discover? So that's that really beautiful integration of, yes, as an author, I'm the expert, I'm the guide, and I'm also human.
Yeah. That's great. And I think the interesting thing there also is that having been like an engineer, like you, having been an engineer, we're logical thinkers. And I think there's also a segment where we know I did this course, neuromarketing, with Copenhagen Business School, and just the subliminal messages and the cognitive biases that we have, that we're set, that we're not even consciously aware of, that go on. I know that if I throw in, use intuition, or check out some essential oils, or do some meditation, or, go to yoga or whatever, some people are just like, not me, I'm out. So I know that I can't jump into where people are not even conscious of, but having been someone who's gone from the numbers and the logic to unlocking some of, like, Dr. Joe Dispenza, 2015, 16, I was watching his stuff going, oh, he's a scientist. He's got some proven results. And that led to opening up things. I think I can also bring people who are on that more logical path through to, there are opportunities for them to expand their awareness without going straight into, like, let's do kumbaya in the corner, everyone.
Yeah, it's so true. But one of the definitions, I can't remember where it's from, but it's that sense of, as humans, don't we want to be fully expressed? Don't we want to really, celebrate the left brain and the right brain? Like, isn't that being fully expressed? So, bringing those two pieces in, and for you, for your book, it is about integration. You have this, and I love what you wrote in the conceit. You have this really unique way of bringing those two pieces together. And for those readers who rely so heavily in their life on their left brain and their analytical, their rational, that this is going to be a really beautiful sort of bridge to, well, yeah, there is more, which is part of your theme, right? And is it the Rumi quote that, the journey from the head to the heart is the longest? So for all those people, like myself included, several years ago, who was, well, there's got to be more. Yeah, it's got to be more. For all those people, you're lighting that flame for them. You're letting them know that, yeah, there is more, and here it is.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have just been asked to speak at someone who, like, is a world leader in in so many different aspects of corporate life. And he's got a very high level coaching program with CEOs from around the world. And he said, look, I know this sounds, this is quote, I know this sounds out of the norm, but for my intimate inner circle mastermind, every month I bring on a switched on hot seat guest who talks about things that give them insights to unexpected thinking. I would love you to share your story. And I said, and I asked him who the audience were and who these CEOs and backgrounds, etc. And I said, how about we talk about the woo, the wow, and the how, merging mindset, AI, and strategy for exponential success. I said, what if the biggest thing holding back business success isn't strategy, but subconscious patterns running on autopilot? And what if unlocking the next level isn't about working harder, but leveraging AI, intuition, and non-linear thinking? And he was like, how do you link all those things together? And I think that, you know, I have the ability to with some credibility to bring some of those things together. So, and that's what I like doing. I like that the research, I love the research, but I can get lost in the research. So I need to have that accountability, which is you and the group. So accountability for this week, Alex. I'm going to write my hook, my little story in the beginning. What do you reckon? Is that a good place to start?
Yeah, go for it. And even, you know, yeah, definitely writing the hook, but not to allow that to distract you. That's another big piece about writing is if you're getting stuck, it's your resistance to writing what you should be writing.
Right. Oh, okay.
And
All
it's
right.
and we're all, you know, most of us are in that boat. If you feel like you're getting stuck and people say, oh, you know, that's writer's block. It's not. It's just your resistance to writing what you should be writing.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, start with the hook, but a bit like the title as well. Don't spend months figuring out a title before you start writing. To have a book, you have to write a book.
Okay. Start writing. How do you write a book? Write.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay. That's the quote I'm taking from you, Alex. Just
Yeah,
write.
just
Okay.
right. I think that might be someone else's quote, but anyway,
Okay.
I'll claim it for this session.
Okay. Claim it. Alex repeated someone else's quote that Jane paraphrased into. Just
So
write.
funny. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
All
And
right.
yeah, a hook is a great place to start.
All right. Well, I'll check. When should I be checking in with you? Like when you talk to editors and things, like, do I write chapters and then come in and say, what do you think? Or is it just write? Because I think you said to me once before, if you jump in too soon, people are writing for you, not for the audience. Is that right?
Yes. So again, it's a balance. Definitely have a conversation with an editor or a professional in the industry that you want to engage with. But again, you know, just be aware that you are offering a unique creation. Like your book is unique to you. You don't have to do it the way everyone else is doing it, particularly now with self-publishing. There's so much accessibility for people to get their wisdom and their words and their expressions out into the public without waiting for a traditional publishing contract.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, you can be actively working with a writing coach, or you can, it depends what you love to do. If you love writing and that's your sacred time for your alone time and you're really tuned in, that's when all your ideas come in, then let that flow.
Yeah. Okay.
And then after that, you know, start putting some structure together after that.
It's interesting. I'm in a new startup, this AI tech advisory for large corporates, and I gave a feedback on something this morning, and one of the people came in and said, "Let me translate Jane speak for those who don't get it." And I was like, I just write stream of consciousness, right? That's just like me. I go like, "Oof," and then I stop and go, I don't want to edit that. But spelling, it's fine. And so they're creating a chat GPT to take Jane speak into what the theme of what my intention is. I'm like, okay, cool, that's handy. But that's funny. But I really take that. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate you being on this journey with me, Al. And as always, love your support.
You're very welcome, and glad to be here. Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
It'll be fun. Okay, guys. Well, as you can see, it's a work in progress. It's messy. I do not have a definitive structure other than I'm bringing in some of the most amazing guests who I'm going to ask questions to, just like you saw me asking Alex questions. I want to know what I need to be knowing and how I can then translate that information to make it easy for others to understand. So stick around. The next few months are going to be a roller coaster. I'm bringing in, like, I'm looking at the people that I'm talking to at the moment, and I'm thinking weekly is too far apart to be chatting to these people. But next couple of weeks, I've got the speakers all set who I'm going to be researching with. So, as I said, Darren Stevens from Dr. John Gray's Marketing Machine, Men from Mars, Women from Venus, and also Swati, who is incredible, who gave up and had that kind of awareness that things weren't right. So I want to interview people and really get to what's the moment. And I've had a year of interviewing people on Exit the Matrix podcast. Go and check it out, and listening to people's sliding door moments. And it's incredible where that awareness can come from. But that's what I want to explore so that I can put it into part 1 of the book so people can relate to that. So join the crew. Love you to invite friends and people and get people into this unusual experiment. And I look forward to seeing where it goes. As always, here's to your success. So very happy that you're here, and thank you. I'm so very appreciative. Bye for now.